Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Ali Show, and today we have very special guest, Big Dave, Mr. David Neithe, the mental performance coach. Did I get that
that's
right?
it. Yeah, well done.
How are you, David?
I'm good, thanks, mate.
I heard you had quite a busy day today.
Yes, meetings this morning and
Yeah.
then chiropractic and then racing back so we could
I understand you,
catch up.
as a power lifter or someone who deals with a lot of heavy weights. How does it feel on your body?
I'm in constant pain.
That's kind of what I heard. Ronnie Coleman was actually talking about that.
Yeah, well, Ronnie's a freak though.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, the weights that he was throwing around is
It's
huge.
crazy, and he was saying like how throughout these years he's always been in pain. There's never a period.
Yeah, and
he
I think for a
wasn't in
lot
pain.
of, I know for me as a powerlifter, I've always been in pain. I'm very lucky in the sense that I get neuromuscular massage twice a week with Lifestyles Neuromuscular with Doug and his team there. And then I get chiropractic with Back to Good with Frank. I won't try and pronounce his last name.
I try to avoid those stuff.
I mean, I certainly wanted to promote the guy, but I don't know how you pronounce that last name.
Let's not.
Back to Good is very good.
Yeah, I got to stop butchering people's last names as well. So
I'm notorious for it. So.
So David, for those who don't know who you are, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and this craft that you're doing?
I mean, how it all came about originally for me was I was interested in how I could apply the mental side of things to my own performance. So going back in time, I was enjoying strongman, and obviously you get to a point where you have to start making certain decisions. One of those is whether or not you want to go on gear or not. And it just didn't sit right with me. So I had to go and find an alternative way to sort of still maintain my competitiveness. I did a lot of research on what the Russians were doing, and yes, they were doing a lot of interesting things. But
they seem to be doing everything.
And they're producing freaks. But what I did notice is during the Olympic programming, they were doing a lot of hypnosis. So I thought, hey, well, this is interesting, So I started doing some work on hypnosis and then backed into a new technology called neuro-linguistic programming, which was sort of released probably got busy in the late 80s. It became quite popular. So I went and studied with some top trainers of NLP. I've done a multitude of courses with other people just on the mental side of things over the years, and I think at this stage I've read something like over 800 books.
Wow, that is a lot of books.
Yeah, and I was just absolutely obsessed and fascinated with the mental side of things. So I started applying that for myself, and what I noticed was I started because my background is I'm a printer by trade. I fucking hated that job. And so I got to a point where I was, I performed quite well as a strongman. I did very well in Highland Games and strongman and thoroughly enjoyed it. But what I noticed was this technology, everyone needs to improve on the mental side of things. So I decided to turn this into a career. And it was a bit of a challenge. My background is I came out of school with no qualifications. I'm dyslexic, so I really struggled with learning. And for me, going through the NLP training, I actually learned how to learn and how to learn for me, which gave me a real sense of confidence. I wasn't an overly confident guy going back in my early teens. So I turned this into a business, and here we are. I think this is my 26th year.
Yeah, it is a very beautiful office.
This little office here, mate, this little garage. I sat in here with, I was inside with some mates, and I've got two really good guys, Brownie and Dazza, and we're sitting in here in the office. I'm going, hey, listen, I want to start a business. And they said, well, you've got a garage full of shit, why don't you clean it up and turn that into an office? And so the boys came in and helped build this for me.
Wow.
And I've been operating from home, and it's just been talk about work-life
So
balance.
you've
man.
always been prepared to do the work from home.
Yeah,
While
well,
everybody
it was the
trying
easiest.
to.
It's just common sense. I mean, peak hour traffic was tripping over the kid's bike when they were left out. You know,
That's a brilliant. That was
so
a, well,
25 years out of this garage.
oh, you actually had this a way long time ago.
Yeah,
so you're
yeah,
well prepared.
Yeah, and you know what I've produced out of here.
Mm.
You know, I've had multitude champions, world number ones. I mean,
That's really impressive.
Yeah.
Number one is to get into this line of work that you're doing, but the other thing is to, get all these champions and the people who are at the top of their game across different sports
Yeah.
to come and approach you as well. Because I understand from some of the people who work with you, like Junifer, a top professional boxer. You have the UFC boys. You have basketballers, Olympians, and all sorts, basically businessmen and entrepreneurs. Professional golfer. I was watching that one as well.
It's a complete spectrum.
That's one of the things that really intrigues me is how do you kind of like do that shift through the different sport, and how do you like?
Oh, well, it's sort of easy for me because I'm incredibly talented, but also very humble. No. This is part of the challenge of coaching is that a client comes in that's completely different. The needs of an archer are completely different from a boxer, for instance. But there's still some things that are similar, but generally the requirements are slightly different. One's throwing an arrow and killing someone, the other one's knocking someone out and killing them. You know what I mean? So this fascinates me, but more importantly, I'm just fascinated with people. And my mission in life is to help each and every person that sees me to become the best version of themselves.
I'm fascinated with you, David. Hey, you, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video.
I am fascinated.
One of the things, going back, you were saying about how you competed in the strongman.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit of how does someone, back in those days, there wasn't a lot of following for the strongman. Wasn't a lot of media. Not a lot of people knew about it. It was like, I think maybe only in the last maybe 10, 12 years where it started to
become popular.
And
back in the 90s and even before that, we had some really exceptional athletes here in New Zealand. And I still keep in touch. And unfortunately, we've lost a few of these guys. Unfortunately, Colin Cox, Matt Rossiter, two of them that come to mind. Great guys that were doing amazing things. But in the 90s, we were putting together some really amazing events and doing some incredible things. I think I set the record with a 28-tonner for the truck pull. The anvil carry, we smashed it over 100 meters carrying that.
Wow.
And so, there was a camaraderie. There was a real connection. You compete against guys, but you train with them as well. And we were there supporting each other.
It's always pushing each other.
Yeah, so you're about to go on the truck point, and the guy that's going next is helping you, smacking you on your back, getting you.
So really, you're not competing against each other. You're just competing against yourself.
Yeah, well, I think strongman initially for me was I wanted to be the strongest version of me. I was fascinated. Well, I think it all started initially with me being bullied. And it got to a point where I was sick and tired of being bullied. Enough
is enough, eh?
And I think a lot of people possibly can relate. Look, and it wasn't so much the hidings that wasn't so much the physical. It was more about how it made me feel. Mentally weak. And that I hated me for that. I've allowed myself to feel like this, and I made a promise. I don't ever want to feel like this again. I want to be able to be one of these guys that I'm not interested in being an egotistical guy because I'm big, go out and smashing people to prove anything. I want to be that guy that empowers people around him. Treats people with respect, but I won't take any shit. And again, you'll get this with a lot of my clients when they come and see me. One of the first things I ask them is, do you give me permission to be blunt and honest? Because I'm not here to blow smoke up your ass. I will be very blunt and honest. And when you get to the essence of a person, and peel back the ego and peel back to a level of honesty where you can look at your limiting beliefs, your perceptions, that's when you can start making change. And that's the buzz that I get in working with people is working them out like a puzzle, and then looking at how I can work with them to make them a better version. I think, a prime example would be, just what we were talking about earlier with Israel. And as I said, Israel, I think, is one of the most intelligent men I've ever met. But when he came to me, it was through troubling times. He'd lost a few fights, and the faith wasn't there, the belief wasn't there. But with or without me, to a certain point, Israel had that tenacity and that fight to want to get back. And I think sometimes you only need someone just to help twink a little thought or a concept or whatever. But we worked on that alter ego, and we worked on style bender. And during that whole process, looking at limiting beliefs, looking at the concept of holding the right vision, goal setting, etc., he engineered himself into something that we see today, which is absolutely world class.
It's on another level,
Yeah, he really is something quite special, man.
Not only like in terms of fighting, but mentally.
Yeah, and I think you've got to appreciate this. I think there is certain requirements for an athlete to go to the highest level, and whether we like it or not, there still has to be a certain amount of intellect. And like I've noticed, talking with Jun, you very soon understand that this is a very intelligent man. Do you know what I mean? Now, you do get fighters out there and you do get athletes out there that are, let's just say, to a certain point, with certain fighters, for instance, they're just there to be punched up and to say that they're a fighter. But then there's another class that are fully clear on what their vision is, and they understand their purpose, they understand where they're going and what they want, and they're interested in learning. One of the fundamental things to be an exceptional athlete, I think, and in life in general, is that you must be in a constant state of curiosity. Life's curious. I want you to be curious about your performance. I want you to be curious about learning.
You got to know how well or how bad you're doing to know what to work on.
Yeah, and to be able to, and this is the important thing, it's being able to, I talk about this with debriefing with my clients, and that is, to preserve the learnings and let go of the negative emotions, because a lot of us tend to beat ourselves up. If we come out of a failure is learning. Now, the important thing here is, what are those learnings? And then how do I do that in such a way that it doesn't disempower or contaminate my self-image? So the self-image is something very important that I work on with all my clients. When you have a strong self-image, when you have undoubtable faith in self, you can go through tough times without beating yourself up. And you'll see this a lot, when someone comes through a tough time, they'll blame themselves, or they'll make excuses, or they're in denial
which is pretty common. Yeah,
which is 95% of athletes. The 5% take ownership. They are accountable to their coaches to get the right feedback, and they're going to take responsibility for it. And when you, like I said, when you get out of bed, all blame, excuse, and denial, and get into OAR, ownership, accountability, and responsibility, that's when the magic happens. So there's nothing more powerful when you get to a point when sitting down with an athlete, and I'll frame it up and say, right, today we're going to be blunt and honest. You go to a deeper level of understanding of reality. And there's something that honesty will set them free.
Because usually is it like when you keep yourself covered, you kind of shelter yourself.
Well, that's the purpose of the ego, and the purpose of the ego at the end of the day is to protect you. And so you get a lot of guys that have massive egos and low self-esteem. Now, of the two, I would rather have a strong self-esteem, self-image, that you don't have to worry about an ego. You know what I mean? That's, and a lot of it is you get to a high level of conscious enlightenment, and that's where the magic happens, of totally understanding yourself. I mean, Maslow talked about in the hierarchy of needs, self-actualization. And there's something wonderful about that, is understand yourself and know your strengths and your weaknesses.
That's interesting. Talking about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs as well. I've heard a lot of people talk about that one. It's really interesting. I think people should go and look a little bit more into that as well. One of the things that kind of interested me as well is hypnosis, and you were talking about it earlier.
Yeah, so, and you are looking tired.
It's falling asleep.
Where's your wallet? Yeah.
But talking about the hypnosis, and could you explain a little bit more about?
So, and again, I think there's hypnosis. How I frame it up with my clients is more about visualization. So, just so that we're clear, in the contents of what is required for me in my practice working with clients, there are times when I have to do a certain level of hypnosis. Not a lot, but sometimes. But ideally, what I ultimately want is to help them visualize more effectively. So what you'll find with a lot of athletes, they'll have a flash, they'll have a moment. Now, for me, I want to be able to get them in a state where interestingly enough, we did this, I've done this with Izzy. We put him into an altered state, and we went on his timeline, and we went into time, and we saw everything that we needed to see and to be sensory associated with that. So with the visualization, a lot of people, if I ask them what they see, they're disassociated. So they're watching themselves do it. And then there's also the opportunity for them to be associated. So what I want is them, I want them to work on both, because association, when you're disassociated, it's very good from a technical perspective, because you can see yourself performing efficiently, effectively, with excellence, and throwing the kick, et cetera, et cetera. But what's even more important sometimes is to see it through your own eyes and understand the simple principle that the subconscious mind has no idea of reality or time. So when you learn to visualize and get those emotions going, the subconscious mind immediately thinks it's real, because it doesn't understand time. It doesn't understand the future and the past. It only knows now. So if you're effectively visualizing, you can actually change the neurology and belief systems, and you may have certain limiting beliefs, and then as you go through this whole process efficiently, that belief is then challenged, going, hey, that's not what I've just experienced. And you can actually help people start to change their belief systems, their language, and their perceptions through effective visualization, and a combination of other things as well. And it's powerful, because you can see the change in people. Do you know what I mean? They walk out of here and go, my whole perception of things are different. I'll give you a little story on the power of visualization. Many years ago, a very amazing boxing coach, Lolo, approached me to work with a young man called Sean Sullivan. Now, Sean Sullivan was a great, hard-working man from up north, works on the farm, in the forest, fit as, and he had an opportunity to fight Anthony Mundine. Now, I think he was thrown in as a bit of a warm-up for Danny Green, who is a great boxer out of Australia too. And Lolo said, look, Sean's shitting himself. He just got no faith, Mundine, he's a world-class athlete.
Yeah, at that time when he was at the top.
He was at his top, and Mundine had a mouth. Mundine can build himself up. He didn't lack any confidence, I think someone really brushed up his ego.
Yeah.
So I got in here and did some work on the visualization, and just helped anchor him into a stronger state. Well, what was amazing when he finished, we only had a couple of weeks. I only had about 2 or 3 sessions with Shawnee. And that first fight against Mundine, he put Mundine down 3 times.
Wow.
Now, he didn't win the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, enough. Let's not even go there.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
let's just say...
That's the thing about fighting and...
well, I'll
as
tell
an
you
away
something.
fighter.
Mundine was so embarrassed, he gave him another fight. Now, unfortunately, I didn't work with Sean after that, and that fight wasn't particularly good. But it just goes to show what you can do on really unlocking human potential. And everyone has it. You know, it's interesting. People say to me, what do I need to be a success? And I'll say, well, look, I'll be blunt and honest with you. All right? Do you know what you need? You need 100 trillion cells. What are we all made up of? And what people have to appreciate, they have everything they need right now to be the success they deserve. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And when we all fundamentally believe that, that allows you then to start building the strategies, to build the momentum, to build the consistency, to build the habits to become a success.
The other thing you're talking about, preparing yourself and getting ready. What are your thoughts on? Well, one of the things that I believe in is when you're approaching, for example, in reference to a fighter who's going for a fight. I believe that the actual fight happens before the fight itself.
I would agree. I think here's the fundamental principle here. If you and I are about to fight,
which is not going to happen, Dave. You're going to smash me, but
well, you were getting a little bit cheeky before, pal. But if you believe you're going to win, and I believe you're going to win, then the likely is you're going to win. So ultimately, what I want. Now, I can't guarantee wins, but what I can certainly influence is the athlete putting forward the best version of themselves. Yeah? So at least we can improve probability. So for me, in working with an athlete, I want them to have an undoubtable belief in self. Do you know what I mean? And that's a beautiful place to be.
That mental strength.
And to such a point, there's a thing called... for me, when I talk about the zone or the performance window, I've sort of broken it down over the years. I like to keep things as simple as possible because then it's duplicatable. And so there's 3 states. The first state is calm. When we think about it, when you're calm in a stressful situation, you can make good decisions. What's also interesting in the fight game is when you're calm, isn't it interesting how time distorts? You've got time to think, to move, to counterpunch, to anticipate. But when you're in a manic situation or you're freaking out, isn't it interesting how all that you were taught by your coaches goes out the frickin' window?
Yeah, and you just forget.
It's
just
you
blank.
just go, and then like everything's stressed out and everything's sped up. Do you know what I mean? So I want it's interesting because people say to me, so you work with fighters, go, yeah, you must get them amped up. Eh? I said, that's the last thing I want with my fighters, man. This is not WWE, okay, guys? This is a fucking show. This is a boxing match, So I want them calm. And with that, you'll notice it's easy for them to be very confident and make good decisions. The next is, ironically, happy. When you're in a really happy state and you're happy to be there, what's interesting, when you're in a happy state, it's very hard to access negative self-talk and negative feelings.
Hey, you, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video.
You think about this with the physiology. When someone's happy, it's very hard to access negative self-talk and feelings. And partly that's because the eyes are above the plane of the horizon. So it's all about managing physiology, right? So you think about this, when someone's in a negative state, you can tell because their physiology, right?
Is that body language as well?
Yeah, so it's learning how to manage yourself more efficiently to get more out of yourself. Then the last state, well, that's the magic, right? And that's alter ego. That's when you become Superman or Superwoman. Now, for me, I've had this. I did some work, for instance, and I've got so many stories, but I just obviously want to get something really cool.
Yeah. So some really good story.
Yeah, really good story. I'll make something up now. But I had a lady, Tracy Lamberts, who qualified for the Commonwealth Games, and her coach Adam approached me and said, "Look, mate, she just lacks a little confidence. You know what I mean?" So we did some work with her, and Tracy, to her credit, was so open-minded and keen to work with me, which makes a hell of a difference. And we got her into an altered state. Well, she went on to get a bronze medal when she wasn't even expected to.
Wow.
You work with all these athletes, Alexis, who got bronze at
the Commonwealth Games as well,
and another amazing, incredibly intellectual lady who actually has gone on to do something similar to me now.
Yeah, that's it.
She's very passionate.
I was gonna
it.
say,
and so I'm very proud to say that I helped mentor her into creating that. But an amazing lady. And so, this is there's so much potential that people have untapped. And the last frontier, I think, in human evolution to a certain point will be where we go with our consciousness, with our thinking, our perceptions. And that's very interesting for me. I'm always interested in research. I'm always interested in what's being done out there to help improve human performance. I think mentally we've still got a long way to go. I think the thing right now that seems to have gone to another level is strength and conditioning. I think that's become very, very scientific now.
It is. There's just so much science behind it.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating to me, and I get to work with a lot of amazing strength and conditioning coaches. Some of them are exceptional and very intelligent. And so for me, that inspires me. I'm always doing a lot of research all the time, reading books or YouTube. And it seems to me more and more YouTube for me now.
These days. Everything's moving.
Yeah.
And even talking about books, everything's moving with
love
audio books as well.
But audio books are so much easier. I wish I had them in my day. You've got to appreciate, I remember when I started my studies, you had to write all your papers. Now, being dyslexic, my worst enemy at the time, I didn't even have a bloody computer. So I had to write everything else in pencils. Now, I'm very, very blessed with an amazing wife who would spell check and rewrite it for me.
Wow.
Right? Type it all up.
There's a lot of commitment there.
Oh, mate.
A bit more than...
I wouldn't be where I am today without my wife. She's
Definitely,
an amazing lady. And has been so supportive of me and all my crazy, dumb ideas. But, for me now, it's so much easier to go onto YouTube and tap into a lecture or something. And
almost all this knowledge is easily
huge.
Available.
It's huge. And I think to a certain point, the challenge we have is sort of sifting and sorting the shit from the real,
what we really
legitimate.
need.
Yeah. I think there's some very amazing intellectuals out there that I really enjoy. So, I'm always interested not just in the psychology of things. I'm really interested in philosophy as well. I find it fascinating. And to a certain point, it's almost like the philosophy supports the psychology, which supports the structure of an athlete, So there's many layers to an individual. And part of that path for me is, slowly unlocking all those different levels and getting deeper and deeper.
Yeah, because people always talk about this part of your mind that you're not actually using, or part of your, just your belief in yourself that you're not tapping into.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the one that everybody's trying to get to.
Yeah, I think so. I think everyone's looking at how do I get. Well, we talk about mindfulness, we talk about consciousness, and it's going to a higher level of consciousness and of, there's something wonderful about that mind-body connection, And I think when you combine the mind, I mean, I'm a little biased now. I could be corrected here by physios, etc. out there. But for me personally,
they're all watching you.
and if you've got a problem,
They're
talk to Ali, not me.
They got a pen and a paper.
Here we go. Here we go. He's going to stir it up again. No, but personally, I think the mind controls the body, not the other way around. And I think what I feel is a little frustrating is what's interesting, if you went across the spectrum and got a group, for instance, of multiple different sports people, say there was 500 people there, different sports, and you said, hey, listen, how many of you believe that the mental side of things are important? I would say 100% of people are going to put their hand up. Mm. But what's interesting for me is, so of you that believe it's important, how much of you are doing proper, structured mental work?
Which is what most of us are not doing.
No, we're focusing on the strength and conditioning. We're working on the technical and the tactical. But we somewhat dismiss the importance of the mental.
Yeah, and that was what me and Junior was talking about how the fight, like for in his case, about like the boxers in America and how they do a lot of work on that mental strength.
Absolutely.
And about like, what you talk about, having that mental edge.
Yeah, I think it should be mandatory for any athlete if you're serious. If you haven't seen, whether it's a mental performance coach, a psychologist, I just feel that you're ripping yourself off. I think it's probably the most important investment you'll ever make in your life.
That is very true.
That's a great little plug there.
Yeah, it is.
But I truly believe that, because
it's like when you work out, you eat right.
Yeah.
Right. You train right. Okay. If you're fighting, you get the right fight coach, and then your strength and conditioning coach, and a nutritionist.
Yeah.
But like everybody talks about all this stuff, but they're forgetting.
But ultimately, here's the thing: when you go into the ring, and let's put in the context of fighting. Generally what I find with my elite fighters, if you go in with a group of fighters, right, from kids right through to seniors, the average is about 80%. It's mental, right, in my experience. However, in working with elite fighters, that number gets closer to 100 because they know at the end of the day, all that training is redundant if you don't have undoubtable belief. It's redundant. And ultimately, you think about this, when you've been in a situation where you've performed, ultimately we want to be in a place where we're comfortable, where we're confident. We talk about being in the zone. And when you're in that zone, you become unstoppable. Do you know what I mean? It's the most incredible feeling.
You get to the point where you just believe that you can do whatever you want.
I just know. Do you know what I mean? And I think a lot of, when you get into that fight situation, these guys can trust themselves. They know. They don't have to think, they know. Where others try too hard. When you try too hard, you're setting yourself up for failure. And again, this is why it's so important. You need to be able to have a good, honest conversation with yourself and going, what was I? I have no problem with someone getting a little anxious. You're going into a fight, it's understandable, but not to a point where that anxiety takes over and you are not in control of your mind.
That is very dangerous.
It is very dangerous.
Very
You're
dangerous.
setting yourself up for serious injury. You're going into a fight, man. So I think it's very important. How do we build that? Well, look, the reality is we build this through failure. We build this through experience. We talk about some of the principles of sport. We talk about the 10,000-hour rule. In order to be competent in a movement, you need to be doing that movement at least 10,000 times to master it, so that you've got the neural pathways of design and you can produce that on a constant basis at an unconscious level. And you think about fighting, there's so many components to it. I mean, UFC, it's not just the striking, it's your jiu-jitsu, it's your wrestling.
It's a combination of everything as well.
And to master one in of itself is a beautiful thing. Hence why I think UFC is such an incredible thing to observe. So it takes time. And I think if you're prepared to put in a sustained effort over a long period of time, to fail constantly, to learn and to grow, you will then soon master. Along that journey, you start to understand your mind as well. But let's accelerate it by working with someone.
Talking about learning stuff on the mind as well. I don't know if you've heard. I saw some footage the other day in China. What they're doing is some of the private schools, they've actually invested in doing like studies of the brain, right? And what they're doing is how the kids are learning at that young age, what parts of the brain they're using. What part of the
hemispheres have been stimulated.
Yeah, and they're doing a lot of research and studies into that. What are your thoughts on like what's happening?
When it comes to the neuroscience side of things, it's a little bit out of my league. That's in of itself a whole different area of expertise. You'd be best talking to a neuroscience expert on that sort of thing.
But it is quite interesting, like talking about like stuff that they're doing there, you know, and how if they can figure out,
they can accelerate learning.
That's it,
and that's just it's quite amazing, But having said that, what we also have to appreciate, without a doubt, we do know that the Asian people in themselves are, without a doubt, probably the most intelligent race of people on the planet. They're just incredibly able to, whether it's mastering the violin, the piano, they've got, I don't know, they're genetically gifted in that area. Do you know what I mean?
Or it's either when they're younger, if they don't do it, they just get whooped by their parents.
Well, it could be. I mean, they are certainly. I will tell you this for sure, and you're absolutely right in that to a certain point. But they are very disciplined. I mean, here's I'll give you a little example of that. Someone said to me, "What made Lydia so good?" And
Lydia, which we're talking about, the professional golfer.
Yep. And, I said, I broke it down to one little sentence, and that is, can I just hit one more? Now, it might seem insignificant, but what you have to appreciate, Lydia would finish school and get to the range or the course, but, most of the time at the range. And this young woman who was at this point 10, 11.
Wow.
She'd be there, and as she got older, she'd be there to 11. I mean, we gave her a key to lock up.
Wow.
I mean, she would be hitting balls for hours upon hours upon hours. And so, I have these golfers coming to see me, and I've got this frame of reference on what made her brilliant, and that was work ethic. Without a doubt, she outworked everyone.
You got to have that level of obsession.
Mate, this is what she just loved it. Give her 1,000 balls and a golf club, and she's in heaven. And she play all sorts of shots with it. But most importantly, what she has, and this is what a lot of elite athletes have, and that is a tenacious resolve. They're tenacious. And they have a focus and a resolve to their vision. Lydia, right off the bat, when I asked her to do a vision board, so each of my younger kids, I asked them to put a vision board together. And I would encourage everyone to do it because it just helps you clarify your purpose in life. And we were talking about this before. So she came in with her corkboard. She would have been 10 or 11. And the current champion at that time was Annika Sorensen, who had won the US Open. And I knew it was Annika because it was Golf Digest magazine or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And Lydia cut her head off and stuck her own head on top of it And she was absolutely clear. And what I loved about that is that it was what we call sensory specific. So with your goal setting, you've got to be specific. And the reason for that is because the brain, how it's organized, will do just enough, right? So the more specificity, the better chance you're going to achieve it, right?
Kind of narrow it down to.
Yeah. So we talk about being sensory specific. So I want you to, how does it going to taste? How's it going to feel? Where exactly are you? What do you see around you? You know what I mean? What are those feelings? And when you get people start thinking about that, they get all emotional and go, oh my God, this is amazing, you know? But you couldn't ask for anything more specific than that. And what was ironic, here she was 16 years of age. She did it. She won that event.
Oh, that's really impressive.
The power of thought, right? So here's the thing. Any thought that you consistently hold in your mind will soon seek expression through some practical means. Thoughts become things. And it's your responsibility and your accountability to make sure that your behavior each day is congruent with that vision. And when you can hold yourself to a high level of accountability and consciousness in doing that, you will deliver it. Anyone is capable of anything. And this is the gift that we've been given as human beings. The difference between us and animals fundamentally is that we have a creative mind.
And that, I think that's one of the things, you know, having a creative mind is one, but I feel like there are a lot of people who struggle with their purpose.
Yeah.
And figuring it out. You know?
But I think sometimes in working it out, it's not so much, I mean, I get this all the time. People say to me, so how do I get my purpose? And I think sometimes you have to change the question and change how, you know, someone said to me, look, I want to set a goal in, say, 20 years' time, but I don't know what that is. And I said, so if you could think about something right now that would really make you happy in 20 years' time, what was the vision? He said, I'm on the boat. Okay, you're on a boat. Who's on the boat with you? My grandchildren. Okay, now, what's the size of the boat? Oh, it's big. Okay, cool. What's the name of the boat? Oh my God, I'm far out. And he came up with the name of his boat. And so we got more and more sensory specific. So that's when you start focusing your thoughts. Now, here's the interesting thing. We have something like 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. God help the poor bastard who had to keep count. Yeah. But anyway, this is the research. And what I'm interested in is how many of those thoughts that you have each day contaminate your vision and how many thoughts contribute to it. And when you become more conscious, you can make better choices about your perception, your thinking, and your focus. And that helps you clarify your purpose.
Wow.
It's powerful.
That is deep.
Yeah.
That is deep.
Yeah, it's really exciting because everyone has the ability to use this technology. It is not exclusive. Everyone has the access to this. That's why I said to you, in order to be a success in life, you need one thing, 100 trillion cells. There are so many stories of people that have gone through adversity, that have gone through challenges. I personally love the story of Chichi Rodriguez, who was brought up in the slums of Cuba and would go through the rubbish to get food and bits and pieces to help support the family. Here he is as a 7-year-old, not going to school because he had to support his family. And on the other side of the fence was a golf course with a whole lot of fat Americans playing golf. And he thought to himself, that must be the key. So eventually he got to a point where he got some balls and he got a club and he started practicing because this was his key to changing his life. Eventually he got a caddying job. And before you know it, he got a set of clubs and he practiced his up. And we're talking about sense of purpose. You know what? See, here's the interesting thing here. What motivates people sometimes, there's a thing called motivational filtering systems. You're either moving away from something or towards something. The most powerful thing is to move away from something, right? So for me, my motivation when I started this, because I wanted to get the fuck out of my job. I hated it, right? That was my motivation. Now, the worst place to be is in the middle, and that's comfortable.
You're stuck in that comfortable circle.
There's
That
not
comfort
enough
zone.
motivation to make, people are sitting in a job for 20 years going, God, I hate this, but, I've got a house and a family to feed. I'm going, really? Mate, there's a real simple saying. If you want to walk on water, first you got to step out of the boat. And I encourage my kids to be risk takers. I want people taking risks, not recklessly, but, man, sometimes you got to take a risk, eh? Leadership isn't sometimes about making the right decision. Sometimes leadership's about making a damn decision and committing to it. So anyway, going back to Chi-Chi, here he is now. He played on the PGA for many years back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And he gives a lot of his money back to helping kids in Cuba to educate them.
Do you think that going through adversity, difficulty, struggles, this, some people think that, they're in a real tough situation, but I feel like sometimes this helps.
Oh, I think it's absolutely... I think we're in a society today where a lot of people want it now and aren't prepared to put in the effort. And
Patience.
I think there's a delusion out there. The reality is it takes massive effort. Anything that's ever been achieved of any significance people have to appreciate you will go through pain. And pain is a beautiful thing. Pain means new life.
Pain pushes you to get out of that comfort zone that we're talking about.
Absolutely. And ideally for my athletes, I want them to not try to avoid pain, not try to manage pain, but to thrive in it.
To embrace it.
Yeah, because that's where the magic is. Where you're in the gym and you say, oh, I'm tired, I can't do any more, but you just did 2 more. That might seem insignificant in that moment, but over 10, 15 years, that could be very significant. It's to the power of. It's a bit like this. What would you rather have? $1 million in cash right now, or $1 that doubles every day for 30 days?
Yeah, that's actually a very good trick question for people who can't think ahead.
Exactly.
They'll lose out and they'll think, but I'll take the big one now.
A lot of people will take the shortcut and go, fuck, I'm going for the $1 million. Yeah, but if you put in the effort consistently, even though there's no reward, believe me, at day 5, you're going, you're an idiot, man. I've got $1 million and you've got whatever it is. It's not much, but it's compounding. And that's what makes someone exceptional and others average.
Having that patience as well. I think this day and age, with how people are looking at everybody else.
Yeah.
And when you see what somebody else has, they don't see the work that they've put in, the years that they've put in to get where they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the mindset that people are, building now is like, we want to achieve it fast. What's our quick solution?
Yeah, and the reality is you're deluded. Anyone that's, people talk about people getting rich overnight. Well, those entrepreneurs, if you go and look, they've probably had 13 failures in business, lost a lot of money and have been frustrated but still consistently held on to that vision for a long period of time.
Yeah, we talk about people like Elon Musk.
Yes.
And that guy intrigues me.
This is a guy with what I call tenacious resolve.
Hey, you, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video.
I think without a doubt, hard work pays off, man. I mean, if you're prepared to put in, it's interesting. You see this in the gym all the time. I've got people are incongruent, right? And I have people saying, I want to go to do this and do that. And then when I look at their behavior, it's like, you're deluded. You are absolutely deluded. Now, you get a lot of people that, for instance, they'll go to a gym and they'll train. And then they'll go to city kickboxing, as an example. And there's some pretty amazing gyms around Auckland that I personally work with and some amazing trainers. Lee Gar's another one, there's some pretty amazing people. But when they go and observe, you know how they've got that the session where the guys line up and you go hard for 12 rounds or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Every 30 seconds there's a fresh fighter in and you're gassed. People would look at that and go, well, they'll probably be sick and go, oh, there is no way I don't want to do. Now, these guys put themselves through that in their training camps, and they wonder why the likes of, you know, your Israels, your Kais, you know, why are they so mentally tough? Because they've conditioned themselves for that. You know what I mean?
You've prepared for it before it actually comes.
Mate, they're used to it. They thrive there. Do you know what I mean? And where everyone else is freaking out and going, oh my God, I just want to get out of here.
Yeah.
They're going, hey, listen, I'm comfortable.
You're getting comfortable in deep waters.
Yeah,
you know, just in the worst place that you could be, the worst situation that could happen. You're fatigued, you're tired, you're getting beat up.
You don't want to go on anymore. You want to quit.
But what's so scary is if you get comfortable in that space, it just doesn't bother you anymore.
No, well, you can make those decisions and you can expose the weaknesses of your opponent. You know, Brad Kai, Israel. We've got, who was the other two that are
Shane Young
and
Alex Volkanovski as well.
And there's one more. Who's just recently fought. Unfortunately, he lost, but it was one hell of a fight.
Dan Hooker.
Oh,
yeah.
Dan, you see that fight?
That guy is insane. That guy's insane.
All those guys are exceptional.
All of them. Yeah.
Now, what? You know, here's something that's really interesting that intrigues me. Is what Doug and Eugene have created is something. You know, I was really pleased when Israel got the Hallberg Award, but I was incredibly disappointed that Eugene was overlooked because what he has done. You know, let's think about this for a minute. You know, we go up against rugby, we go up against these national sports where there's a huge resource there. It's a. I mean, anyone being involved with the All Blacks is, let's be real, more than likely going to be successful.
Yeah.
Right, as far as the All Blacks winning. Then you get someone like Doug and Eugene, who against all the odds have produced proportionately more I mean,
the highest number of champions. Any gym in the world right now.
You know, for me, I find that
in the UFC,
Dougie cracks me up. Eugene is a thinker.
He does.
I really appreciate those two guys. They're amazing guys, and I have a huge amount of respect. You know, not just for their knowledge, but for what they've created. And I think what they have ultimately cracked is what the whole high performance environment is all about. Now, when you think about it, these guys are really down to earth, humble guys. They haven't got the latest techniques. They haven't got the latest technology.
And they just started. They just started like a really small thing.
Just two incredibly caring guys
and committed.
Oh, absolutely,
very committed.
And I think more importantly, they're, you know, for me, especially with the conversation I've had with Eugene. Eugene and we're fast. I love talking to him. He's very deep. He's a very strategic thinker.
Talking about Eugene, and the way he thinks really intrigues me as well. Because what I notice as well is, for myself, I like to do a lot of research on people. You know, and before I actually speak to a person, I like to know more about them first. So I know, you know what's the right questions to ask or how to approach this person. And I've watched a lot of stuff, like podcasts that Eugene's did, interviews, and he recently had his own little special on UFC Fight Pass. So yeah, they actually did a story about him. So I watched a lot of his stuff, and what's funny is I see Eugene quite often. I say hello, and hey, we don't really talk that much, but I don't want to say, I don't want to say much yet because I haven't really pieced the puzzle that I want.
Yeah, well, Eugene's not an extroverted guy, so
Yeah.
he's pretty quiet, mate.
Yes.
Many years ago when I was bouncing, he was the guy that you worry about, right? Dougie would get loud and get on the person, he'd start a fight, but you put him in the back of the wagon and take him and put him back in the cell. But Eugene would be the one sitting in the corner, and before you know it, there's 4 people dead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, holy shit, man, you gotta watch that dude. They're both killers. They're both amazing guys.
What really intrigues me is the way that he thinks and he strategizes. He could be for all you know, he could be they could they really need to study his mind. I think they really need to study his mind.
Yeah, he's a modern day general, mate. He's a very strategic, very deep thinker, and I think both of them are a blessing here.
Both, definitely.
And I think they've really had an impact in the way that a lot of other clubs, whether it's UFC, wrestling, others, I would say that's probably had a huge impact in the whole psyche here in this country. I mean, here's the thing. What we've proven is a legitimate pathway for an athlete to become very, very successful. And Dan and Izzy have paved the way for others to say, you know what, this is legit. I honestly have, if I have, and more importantly, if people are smart enough to model how those guys think, model how they train, they're more than likely, with the right direction, the right coaching, more than likely they could have a very similar result.
Not everybody can become a champion, obviously, but you could achieve, a very high, get to a very high level.
Well, I mean, look, let's just say that, your average UFC fighter probably is on, 120, 130,000 a year, right? A good consistent fighter. Now, if you looked at 8 years in the fight game, you're well over $1 million. Now, I don't know about you. Will you have bonuses, and potentially if you go up for the rankings, you could easily do that. Izzy's done it in 2 years?
Yeah, which is an incredibly fast amount of time. Yeah, I think he. Well, I might be wrong.
Well, it's 2 years in the UFC, but and that in itself is freaky. But again, we have to look at the history. Look at the years of struggle, the challenges, but the faith that he has in himself.
I think that was next level.
Yeah, and I really appreciated. The other thing that I really appreciated was what he said at the Hellberg Awards. When I win, we all win, and I think there's something really, again, not just intellectual, but very special in that. And I think people need to wake up to that. We're in a nation, for me personally, I build very strong relationships with all my clients. And I certainly love it when they have success. But what really irates me is when they have a struggling time, how the media can rip them to shreds. Lydia probably isn't a prime example of that. And I really don't appreciate. I think it's too easy to make that sort of statement and not to support. I mean, let's get a bit of perspective here. She's been given a bit of a tough time, but who is our highest performing professional golfer? Without a doubt, still, it's Lydia. And yet, when some of the other boys do okay on a PGA event, it's all smoke blown up their ass. It's ridiculous. So, I think. Look, I can appreciate that there's. If you're a high-profile athlete, this is all part and parcel of it, and you need to deal with that. And to a certain point, with my athletes, teaching them how to disassociate. And again, one of the things that I talk about is building a very strong self-image. Even I get a bit of criticism and whatnot, and not everyone totally agrees with my methodology and the way I operate.
Everybody
and
has
that's okay.
the right to have your own opinions.
Absolutely. Because quite frankly, it's their opinion. I don't give a fuck. All I know is what I'm doing, and my track record speaks for itself.
That's right. You gotta be. That's the thing. Also, being a high level athlete as well, you're gonna be in the public eye, and the media doesn't really work in the best of ways.
No, I think media is more about sensationalism and making sales. You know, let's
about making money.
let's stir some shit up here. Let's take a story and make it more than what it is, and amplify it. And so let's get some excitement going. And I think, as I said to you earlier about going into YouTube and whatnot, I think you've got to be very careful who you get information from. And to a certain point, certainly don't trust all sources. I would say you take some of that stuff with a pinch of salt.
Yeah.
And the other key thing for me is, for sure, you're going through a tough time. Walk a week in her shoes, man. And more importantly, what the fuck have you done? You're very quick to criticise her. You're sitting on your fucking couch at home.
There's just so many. There's just so many keyboard warriors now.
Shut the fuck up, man.
It's insane,
it's pathetic. That's the only thing that I hate about this new technology is you get complete fuckwits out there that are people are. They've been given a voice, and I can appreciate free speech, and I'm all for that. But some people are just it's sickening.
Yeah, but what's interesting is I've heard some figures, right, in the public eye who, and there was one who actually said that was something really interesting. The fact that you've taken your time to look at his stuff or to learn about it or whatever, and then to take that time to do that and to say what you did. He said he just feels sorry for you, like he thanks the whoever the person is for taking your time to watch and whatever, and you might have benefited something, but he feels sad for you, the fact that you have to go out to bring somebody down because you're insecure about yourself.
Exactly. As I said to you earlier, what's the true way to leadership? Leadership's about building people up. Now look, we all have to be held to account. Right? Now, if you've done something wrong, if you've fucked up, then you've got to take responsibility for it. But again, a lot of it is in the grey area of opinions. And it's like me making an opinion about your fights and who you are based on the fact that we had a quick conversation. And then I'm just going to start blasting, he's no good because of this, and this. And it's, it's just bullshit. This is why... as I said to success is the best revenge sometimes.
Yeah, it is.
It really is. All those people that saw Izzy is going, he's not. I was so proud of the guy when he nailed that bout. And I think there's a lot of satisfaction, first and foremost, in making mum and dad proud for him, because family is very important. But I say also in there, all those people that had no faith, who didn't believe, it's the ultimate fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
That's just the nicer way of saying it.
Yeah. And I apologise for swearing, but,
it's all right.
it's and that's the cool thing. Hence why it's important for an athlete to develop what I call a tenacious resolve. Because you are going to get all sorts of things thrown at you, challenges. But if you keep your mind on the job, focused on that, and when you have undoubtable belief, mate, people can have comments till the cows come home.
Yeah.
And it's nice to know when because it's just fuel. All these guys giving them a hard time, all my other athletes a hard time, it's just fuel.
Some people thrive
in that. They love it. And like I said, what we what we work on with my athletes, not saying that all of them go for this sort of thing, but we learn to reframe everything to serve us. So a negative comment, we reframe that before we get emotional about it. We reframe it to serve.
Yeah.
And turn that into energy. Thank you for that.
it.
Thank you for that feedback.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm going to be using your face on that punching bag, and my God, am I going to be throwing some good jabs, man? Thank you.
Oh, well, anyway, David, also, just before we go, I understand you're going to set a record today at the gym.
Yes, well, look, the intention today is I have to bench 184 kgs. It's on my training program. This is 2.5 kgs more than I've ever done in a competition, although I have done more out of competition. But it's a record in the sense that I'm in the 50-plus-year-olds. So for the GPC powerlifting, with a bit of luck, if I nail it today, it'll be an unofficial
record.
And
Wow.
I've still got a few more months to my comp, so we're tracking in the right way. I'm pretty bloody excited.
Wow, that's awesome.
And just to reiterate, Junior, I can bench press more than you.
Yeah, you're watching that, Junior.
Are you watching that, Junior? I love that guy. He's brilliant.
Yeah, he is. He's a very interesting individual.
Yeah, he certainly is, mate.
When I got to know him as well, there was like what you said about the layers and all that, talking to him, and he's a really intelligent guy.
It's something that's interesting. We're inside, and I'm making a coffee, and he goes, "Holy shit, you're ambidextrous," because I can use both hands.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. Only he spotted that. A lot of people don't. You don't really see that, but just. Obviously, for him, I think he's probably a little bit more aware of behaviour, especially with his son. With autism, he's very
observant.
Very observant. Yeah, like I said, you get that also with the likes of Eugene. Very, very observant. But he's still got a bloody good sense of humour.
Yeah.
I mean, he's at UFC. He's at the bloody city kickboxing. And I'm walking over, he's been interviewed, and the guys are all hanging around. And he comes up, "Hey, bro," and I give him a big hug as he does. And the guy goes, "Oh, who's this?" And Doug and usually go, "Oh, this is my lover." I'm going, "Oh, for fuck's sake, mate, that's going to be on fucking camera, you dick." You know what I mean? What the fuck? So I mean, no, I'm not. Walk off going, "Fuck, he's brilliant. He just put me on the spot." I'm not the sort of guy who doesn't think about something to say, but it was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you could have said something else.
I love that sense of humour, man. And that's something I appreciate about all those, all my athletes. The other thing is, it's having a great, we have a piss take. My wife will be sitting there and going, "What were you guys cracking up about?" I mean, ultimately for me in a coaching session, it's not some sort of, how do you feel about that? And tell me how you feel about that.
And then you're putting
I will take the piss out of them and we'll have a bloody good laugh.
That's it.
Because, for me, ultimately, when you're having fun, you learn better.
It's very true.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I can take someone from being in tears for 1 minute to be cracking up the next. And it is a bit of a roller coaster ride sometimes. But, I think ultimately it's the craft.
I think it's just the energy that you have. It's different, for myself, talking with you, off camera and on. I just get this energy from you. I'm feeding off the energy from you, and
I'm married, man. Just so Joe, it's okay, sweetheart. I love you.
Just to get it clear.
But if I ever broke up, bro.
But it's different, bro. And when you meet a lot of people from all around, and I've met a lot of people, and there's just certain people you meet where you get that energy, and this person genuine, or they have a certain vibe.
Yeah.
To them, and that's just you. And I guess, of course, doing the stuff that you do, you've developed this over the years, which makes you really good at what you do.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy, thinking about how you've helped these athletes.
Yeah.
And in more ways than I think people actually do realize. I think
It's interesting you say that, mate, because I'm sort of. What's ironic is people mention names, and 9 times out of 10, like, I work with them. I work with them. I'm like, really? Fuck.
taking everybody.
You got to like everyone, man. And I'm going, yeah. Well, I'm good.
Yeah.
But it really gives me a buzz. Like I said, the only true way to wealth is to help others get what they want.
That's it.
I just generally want to see every single person that see me become the best version of themselves. I've had incredible situations. Look, I've got stories, so many stories, mate. But when you have a parent or parents come in and in tears going, "Thank you, we've got our daughter back." I had a situation with a girl who was just miserable and they couldn't put their finger on it. And I started working with her, and she went through this massive change. And, like I'm a fucking ex-New Zealand strongest man. I bench and I'm fucking a bit of a hard nut.
Yeah.
But I'm in fucking tears, man, And having that for me is just as important as a gold medal. I had a young kid who was, ironically, it was this beautiful young fella who, bubbly, just enthusiastic, but just wasn't performing. And I started working with him, and I remember his parents were driving back from the national swimming, and they go, "Oh, Dave, we just want to let you know that he, in his first race, he had a 6-second PB."
Wow.
And they're going, "Holy shit, that's massive in the pool, right?"
Yeah,
that's huge, right? I'm going, "Fuck, that's amazing, that's awesome." They go, wait. And his number one event, he had a 13-second PB.
Wow.
13 seconds.
Wow.
That's he's only a young fella, but when you have that energy in the car, the parents are just stoked. I mean, it's not cheap to see me, And for them, they've got that return on that investment. That means and I do this day in and day out, man. This is not work, eh?
You got to love what you do.
Yeah, man. This is conversations.
If not,
with
we're
friends.
going back to the fact where you wanted to just get the hell out of your job.
Look, life by design, not life by default, eh? And too many people live by default. Like I said to you, sometimes you just find something that you're so passionate and obsessed about and work something around that.
Yeah.
It becomes a very, very fulfilling life, mate.
Definitely. Well, I think, man, David, I think people have benefited a lot from this session that we did today.
It's been a pleasure,
and
man.
I don't know, do we need to write them a bill? Because you've just gave out so much free
donations
knowledge.
Donations to the SPCA, because my wife would love that.
Wow.
So if anyone wants to give a couple of bucks would be great.
Definitely. That's going towards a good cause.
Yeah.
Definitely it does mean a lot. And last, before we go, David, any parting statements? You've given a lot already. I know it's a lot to ask.
With something,
let's
some
finish
wise words.
Wise words from the wise man. Because Junior Fa actually gave some wise words in his.
What did he say?
So his one was.
He just stole my shit.
He probably.
What did Junior say?
Junior's one was, okay, let me play. I don't want to say it wrongly.
Don't misquote him because he'll get upset.
Yeah, he will.
You don't want to see him angry, mate.
He'll get upset with me, I don't want him throwing any punches at me now.
Yep.
He's gonna break my bones.
Yep.
Let's see this one here. Yeah. So this is what he says. Let's get that. Are we in a cave, David? Doesn't seem to be loading. Okay, hold on.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Junior. Here we go.
That's it there. Pretty catchy, my rotating head.
I love that.
It's kind of loading.
Okay,
slowly.
so he's definitely, Junior, you've got that stutter back, mate. He gets that when he's nervous. And he's nervous because he was stealing my shit.
Yeah, so he was saying along the words of,
Yep.
knowing yourself to a T.
Yeah.
And, just, yeah.
Well, along those lines, what you can appreciate is this. Honesty will set you free.
Mm.
Be honest with yourself, man. You know what I mean? And when you get to that level of honesty, you can then put and develop the plan for improvement. But I think the thing that I said earlier, I want to reiterate, and that's this. Any thought that you consistently hold in your mind will soon seek expression through some practical means. So the key word I want to finish with is this. I want every single person out there to give themselves permission to be brilliant. That word permission is massive. Give yourself permission. Dream
Powerful.
big, be massive, achieve your goals.
Not set limitations.
Fuck limitations.
That's powerful. That's wise words from the wise man himself, right?
Yeah,
so
cheers, man.
Now for every next person, they gotta try to beat that, which is gonna be really hard to beat.
Well, hey, we've got a little challenge going, huh? Yeah,
That's the one.
maybe we'll have to put the same words in different languages. That would be really cool too.
Oh well. Anyway, David, thank you so much
It's a pleasure, mate.
for coming on the podcast today. It's an honor to have you on and for you to share so much knowledge. And I wish you the best in achieving your PB today.
Yeah, thanks, man.
And,
if I don't, I won't be saying nothing.
I'll be at the gym filming.
Yeah,
I'll be at the site. You won't see me.
Yeah,
I'll be just there. And
we'll fake it. We'll get plastic plates.
But yeah, I really appreciate your time, David. And I'll put up your socials as well. So
it.
those who are interested about David and what he does, I'm going to put his socials up on the link in the video and follow him and try to gain as much as you can from this guy. Yeah, David,
Thanks,
thank you very much.
Pleasure, right?
Cheers, brother. Thank you for watching this episode. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. I'll see you on the next one.